Dan and Dave ruined a lot of plots and characters in Game of Thrones, but arguably the most under-discussed is the character assassination of Arya Stark.
It's really a shame, too, because at least in our opinion, Arya is one of the best female characters, if not one of the best characters overall in A Song of Ice and Fire. She's very complex. She actually has to roll around in the mud and fight for what she has, which still isn't very little, at least in the book continuity. But yeah, Dan and Dave really did a number on her. And really, dude, it comes down to Dan and Dave wanting to have their cake and eat it too. They wanted to make her perfect. When she goes over to Braavos and trains to be a faceless man, she should have either had to give up everything to become a faceless man and acquire the abilities to do the things she wants, but in the process losing herself as Arya Stark, or she realizes part of the way through that this really isn't for her, and she can reclaim the identity of Arya Stark, go back and basically rediscover her heritage and live that way peacefully forever, not being able to contribute quite as well as she would have if she acquired the abilities, but at least she kept herself. Instead, Dan and Dave gave her both, which makes no sense.
Yeah, imagine if in one of our favorite movies of all time, Indiana Jones, Last Crusade, if somehow Indy and his father, Henry Sr., were able to leave the temple with the Holy Grail. No, it's that much better because they really wanted the Grail, but what they actually needed was their relationship to be mended. For Henry Sr. to call him Indy, you're like, oh, that's so good,
dude.
That
oh my
hits
god,
me. That's what we want out of Arya, but instead we get her at the end in. Is it season 6, right? Where she goes, what's the quote here, Gator? I'm a Stark and I'm going home.
Yes. Oh, she completes her training. So she should be a faceless man at this point, right? She's fully trained. She defeated the lesbian in chief over there of the House in Black and White. And Jaqen H'ghar comes up to her and rewards her, saying, like, finally, a girl is no one, right? Like, that should be high praise from Jaqen H'ghar. This is like your role model. But apparently she had a change of heart, and she says, no, a girl is Arya Stark of Winterfell, and I'm going home. It's just a slap in the face to the concept of the House of Black and White and just the reader/viewer in general, man. It's like, yeah, I'll just take what I want from this place, not retain any of the consequences that are supposed to be inherent to it, at least from what we know. But I'm going to retain all the positive effects that it had, like deuces.
Yeah, it's weird because there's the aspect of her character arc not feeling fulfilling in there, as well as it kind of correlates with the character's ability. Yeah, if she went back to Westeros, said, hey, I want to be Arya Stark now, and then she didn't use any of the Faceless Men powers, then you'd go, okay, she went over to Braavos, learned a lot about herself, but then is coming back and not using the powers because she doesn't deserve the powers. She doesn't gain the powers because she doesn't follow the rules of the many-faced god. But instead what we get out of her is she is Arya Stark and uses the powers of the Faceless Men and kills Walder Frey and is able to do basically what she wants with these powers and, takes these suitcases of faces up to Winterfell. It feels like she should have just made a decision somewhere there where it's, hey, I want the powers or I want to be Arya Stark. But like you said, they want to have their cake and eat it too. And with her character arc, it doesn't feel satisfying when she leaves Braavos. It just feels like a really bad filler arc for her that in the books is being done way better and longer and more grueling and is way more satisfying thus far than hers was in the TV show.
Right, exactly. Like, to counter that quote from earlier, there is a quote in Feast in an Arya chapter, and this is, mind you, way before she's barely even begun training in the House of Black and White at this point, okay? This is in reference to her rolling around in the mud, her trials and tribulations to even get to this point, all right? And I'm going to jump in mid-quote here. She says, no one, she would answer. She who had been Arya of House Stark, Arya Underfoot, Arya Horseface, she had been Airy and Weasel too, and Squab and Salty, Nan the Cupbearer, the Grey Mouse, a Sheep, the Ghost of Harrenhal, but not for true, not in her heart of hearts. In there, she was Arya of Winterfell, the daughter of Lord Eddard Stark and Lady Catelyn. So at that point, she could still go either way. And there is a clear point in the show where you can see this divergence where the two, like the decision tree happens, right? It's like you go to the dark castle or you go to the happy, bright, sunshiny place. The bright, sunshiny place is back to her nostalgia zone of Winterfell, and she just kind of assists in the war, right? And she's like, okay, I'm not that physically capable compared to what I could be, but I'm at least doing my part, and I'm like connecting with my family. I'm in a nice warm spot. Or she goes to the dark castle place where she, fuck all that. Instead, I'm going to become this literal no one. I'm going to end up with this sterile personality like Bran or like Jaqen H'ghar, who completely abandoned who they are. It feels like that Arya is using cheat codes here. You know what I mean? She's using cheat codes to access only the positive effects of the House of Black and White, which does not follow the rules of the magic system. Like, Don Boy, you love talking about this legendary magic system, this literary magic system, and this breaks one of the key rules.
Yeah, the Brandon Sanderson rules. An author's ability to solve conflict with magic in a satisfying way is directly proportional on how well the reader understands said magic. So unless we actually know the limitations and the boundaries in which you are like playing in a good zone versus, hey, you're stepping out of line, this is not what you're supposed to do, there's going to be consequences for this. Unless we fully understand that, it's not satisfying for us to watch. It feels like a really bad Saturday morning cartoon TV show.
It does, yeah, dude, totally. And so that what we mean by that is like the proportion to how well we understand the magic system. As far as we know, the thing that we understand about the magic system is you need to become this no one figure, right, in order to acquire the full capability of the Faceless Men tribe. Right. And she defies that right away, which sucks because we only have one example. It's not like in something like Star Wars, let's say, we could potentially see, after many installations down the road, we see like hundreds of Jedi, thousands of Jedi following the same path, doing this whole hero's journey, typical good guy, bad guy narrative situation. And sometimes they like turn to the dark side and then they become evil because of it, right? But it would be so cool, and this is like a hypothetical thing that could have happened in the Star Wars sequels, is we see a Jedi figure, like maybe Kylo Ren or whatever, successfully using both the light and dark side, like willingly. It's clearly visualized on screen, and he's like defying the magic system rules in the past in order to acquire this new form of power. But that would only work because we've so thoroughly explored all of the standard procedure in the past versus in this. Right. We've only seen one Faceless Man. We've seen Jack and Nagar, and that's it. And we like kind of hear about the concept of the whole, faction of these guys, but we don't see any others. So it's just, if we have one example and then Arya's defying this, it begs the question. It's like, dude, can any shitster from anywhere around the world just come and do this, And that applies to her killing the Night King too. Like, if Arya has the ability now to take out the Night King, doesn't that mean that basically any Faceless Man who went through the same training as her had the same ability? We'll go into that later, whether or not she even deserved that kill, but I'm just talking about the logistics of it. If she's able to do that, dude, I feel like any Faceless Man could have been hired to kill the Night King and it would have just been work out fine, lickety split.
Yeah, definitely. And another thing that could have happened with her was if she uses the powers over in Westeros, like she's told, after you leave the House of Black and White, you can't, if you're not underneath the, guidance of the many-faced god and you're doing your own thing, there'll be consequences. And if one of the consequences wasn't like a magic one, but the many-face or, the Faceless Men will come after you and try to assassinate you.
Yeah, sure.
And then she has to like watch, she watch over her back. And then maybe that's part where she goes, hey, I wanted to go home, but now I'm putting my family in danger because they're going to hurt people I know. What do I do? Maybe I have to just go become no one now. And that's a very tragic story that they could have made, right? She has to now, even though she wants to go home, wants to be part of the pack, she can't because she chose to go too far down the line with the many-faced god, with the Faceless Men, and now her family might have to pay the consequences for it. So she has to be selfless by going off by herself. That would be interesting, but they're not doing that. She keeps her powers. I guess what would have been interesting, her leaving the House of Black and White too, is if she decided, hey, I'm going to leave my powers here, never use them, I'm going back home. I suffered through all of that to get that one prize. Kind of like, oh, you did everything you could do to make the team, and once you got in a starting spot, you left. It's like, yeah, because I realized I wanted to go home. She doesn't get to take that starting position back with her, Like that's satisfying because you have to leave it there on the field. Like, yeah, there's an opportunity for me. I'm not taking that. I'm going back home. I'm going to be a starting quarterback back home. It's like, what? No.
Right, yeah, that's the Holy Grail thing, right?
Yeah, the Holy Grail. Yeah, exactly.
And just like the Holy Grail thing, there is a divine property to this. Okay, I'm much more of a fan of the political stuff and the Song of Ice and Fire rather than the divine shit. But it's undeniable that a lot of these gods are real. Okay, like the R'hllor, the many-faced god, they are doing really weird stuff that no normal person can do, right? And it is very heavily implied and shown to us that these powers come from the many-faced god, and it also is heavily implied from both Syria Farrell and from Jack and Nagar, and I would argue it's shown to us, like it's blatantly shown to us, that it requires following the many-faced god, and like believing in him and whatever. And again, it just seems to betray the religion that you can just retain who you are. And arguably, I don't know if she's going to go back to Winterfell, and get on her hands and knees for these mongoloid old gods or what, but at that point, she should definitely lose her powers. I don't know. There's just something really strange about it, and I don't know if you want to like tie this in or get into this too, but it's not even just that she's an assassin. She's also like a master of combat now too. Like, is that what the many? As far as I know, I mean, I understand she's sparring over there as part of her training. I don't think that means you can just take anybody in Westeros to pound school now.
Not even anybody. Brienne of Tarth, who canonically is supposed to be one of the greatest swordsmen, or like top tier swordsmen in Westeros. And even though I'm not a huge fan of that, because like I live in reality and a woman sword fighter would never be able to beat a male sword fighter. Prove me wrong, guys. Show me a historical example in the comments, please. I'd love to hear it. But not even that. Arya, a little pencil thin, and in the book, I think she's under 10 years old, right? What's her age in the books?
Yeah, she's like 11 as of now in the story. Not even at the beginning. Like, that's more like where the show began. But she's like 11.
But that works as an assassin, some person that's able to take advantage of you being off guard. But somebody on guard, a knight, a fully plated knight in that scene we get in, I think it's season 7. It's just, what are they trying to do? It just, so much disbelief in my head. And Arya has a skill set. Even if I said, yeah, the arc up to this point and her having all these abilities, totally cool with. Yeah, that's fine. Her ability is not to go fight a knight head on. She should be able to take this knight out while she's on like patrol with her back turned to you, right? You're able to get her when she's not looking. Not like, I guess kind of like she did with the Night King, right? She's able to get him, but that was...
the main issue with the Night King thing, that is just, that's a kill that she just didn't deserve, and it's not in any way because she's a female character or anything like that. That is in no way representative. I wanted to see Arya do some crazy stuff, and she could have assisted. Like, I wouldn't have any problem of her taking out several, like, normal White Walkers. In fact, it would have been such a cool action sequence if we see her successfully be able to assassinate several actual White Walkers, not whites, but actual walkers, and then she tries to do the same tactic on the Night King, and he has like some kind of extra sensory ability and just stops it effortlessly, right, and tosses her away. That would actually be super cool because then it really builds him up. Mm-hmm. And then obviously you have to give Jon or somebody like that the kill. It would have made more sense to give the kill to Tormund. At least Tormund or anybody beyond the Wall was integral and a part of the plot of the White Walkers and the Night King, you know? It wasn't deserved.
Yeah, I mean, even Sam would be a better person to kill the Night King.
And like I said, there is utility for Arya in the Night King sequence to build him up to be even more powerful. It just wasn't the way they executed it. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, and I try to think of this situation and try to compare it to some other huge climactic moment. And the only one that kind of really comes to mind is if somehow in Endgame, if Captain Marvel, when she comes down from orbit, just to take out the ship, she also came down and grabbed Thanos' gauntlet, was able to beat him up, and then snapped her fingers, and you'd be like, well, that was a little anticlimactic. I was really hoping for either Tony, Thor, or Captain America to do it, but instead we get this person who has had very little conflict with Thanos. We see her in the beginning, and then at the end, but that's about it. What is Arya's connection with the Night King other than she just came back from Braavos, and now she understands this is the looming threat? She hasn't even seen a White Walker, I think, up until the Battle of Winterfell.
She probably thinks it's all fake, right? Just stories for children. But also, too, just real quick to the Endgame thing, just to make it a little more listener-friendly, I guess. If you really want to make it even like, oh, it's a woman who can't take out Thanos. No. Dude, Gamora could have taken out Thanos, too. And it would have made 100% sense, right? Like, it's not quite as big a payoff as Tony Stark did it. But Gamora could have done it. I can't think of a female equivalent character in A Song of Ice and Fire to pay that off in the same way that it would with Gamora, but regardless, it's very difficult to argue that Arya deserved that kill or have it even be logical that she could kill the Night King that way. Because like I said, now you are building up the House of Black and White to be basically a training center with a completely unnecessary spiritual element.
I really hope she's not up there in the books. If the Battle of Winterfell happens, I really just don't want Arya up there. What point will she give or help?
Oh, I know.
Being up there. Same with Sansa. Like, what does Sansa do up there? Like, get everyone out of there. Get all the women and children out. Get them out. Tyrion.
Listen, no, Tyrion. The full redeem for me is if we finally get what we've been teased with through all the years of A Song of Ice and Fire. Arya loses that V card to Jon Snow, or at least her A card. I mean, one of the two. One of the two.
We have been, not even subtly, very obviously foreshadowed that Jon is going to be getting it in with Arya. Just look at George's first draft of it, and then Tyrion's going to be, again, peeping through the little cuck crack.
Oh, dude.
Seeing it all
Always
happening.
cuck Tyrion.
Oh, please. Oh.
Might even be stealth. She might even use her skills to learn the House of Black and White. John might not even know what happened until it's too late.
Oh,
it's
dude.
Finished. It's like
She puts on Tyrion's face.
or Sam's.
No foreplay, Sam.
They're fucking.
But by the time she comes over to Westeros, I really want Arya to. I mean, I guess in the TV show, she comes over to Westeros. She knows she doesn't want to become a faceless man, but she still wants to go assassinate it because like her first goal is to kill Walder Frey, then head down to Cersei. It's not until she learns that Jon Snow took Winterfell that she heads back up north. I feel like she should have came back to Winterfell and immediately started looking for her family. I'm Arya Stark of Winterfell. Like if she said that's where she should be going. Not be like, I am the physical embodiment of revenge. That's what she should have said to Jaqen H'ghar after she left, if that's what she's going to go do.
Yes, if she's taking that path where she's reclaiming the Arya Stark personality, she should be coming back here and immediately going for the family, not this revenge thing. That should have been kind of like the thing she learned along the way, right? It's like revenge has only led me down this dark path that's taken me away from my family. That should be the lesson learned, not like, well, I can actually just do all these things and there's no repercussion for it and it's super easy. That shouldn't be what it is. However, if the other situation happened and she went through the full training and actually lost herself, maybe she even stayed blind, something like that, right? And then she comes back over as this more like specter figure where she's no one and she's telling little riddles that pisses everybody off, just like Jaqen H'ghar does. Maybe she has a little strip of white in her hair too. If that happens, then yeah, she could continue on this revenge train, kind of like how Lady Stoneheart is, right? And this is actually an issue that I was thinking about too. The way that Arya is set up, it's going to be very difficult for George to thread this needle because no matter what, you're kind of robbing somebody else's arc, no matter what you do. Like if she goes back and reclaims her position as Arya, there's a chance that she's kind of taking Jon Snow's arc a little bit, right? Because Jon went beyond the wall. He forgave, or he lost all of his titles. He gave all that stuff up. He is no one now except for a brother of the Night's Watch. But it seems like he might come back to life. If it's done the same way as it was done in the show for Jon Snow, he's just going to reclaim his title as Jon Snow, which is, again, what Arya is doing right now. It's kind of double trouble. Or she does the faceless man thing, and she kind of ends up like Bran if she ends up back in the fold. It's like, well, this is Bran, but it's not really Bran. This is Arya, it's not really Arya. It's kind of rock and a hard place situation.
I mean, could you imagine if Arya, for whatever reason, stays in Braavos, doesn't come back to Westeros, but then is hired by some person to go kill either Walder Frey or Lady Stoneheart or some person that's kind of on her list, and then she has to do it. Or maybe somebody that's not on her list, somebody close to her, and then she comes over to Westeros, and then she has the conflicting either feeling that she either has to stay a faceless man or leave her powers and just adopt the Arya thing. But that would be interesting, like the conflict there versus over in Braavos. So that way she's here already, and then she's like, okay, well now I'm Arya. What do I do now? I don't know. I think. Yeah, I don't know, because it does feel like everyone is not themselves right now, if you include Sansa, though, with Arya, right? Because Sansa at this point is Elaine, Bran is now the three-eyed raven, and Jon is dead. So they're all kind of coming back into a new identity, coming back to Winterfell as different versions, which they're all kind of like their own different main characters. So I don't think they're stealing... You think it's stealing his arc if Arya comes back and assumes her identity as Arya Stark in Winterfell?
It just kind of would feel like more of the same. I just think there needs to be something really different that they do with Arya to make her stand out. Because like you said, this is kind of happening to the whole Stark family. Something that they could do, and this would be pretty cool. I don't know exactly how you'd execute it, but basically have her die over in Essos, carrying out an assassination on some like important figure that would have, if she had not carried out that assassination, wreaked havoc on her allies back in Westeros, and she could maybe realize this mid-training with like Jaqen H'ghar. This would be a good way to balance like the rebelling from the House in Black and White, but also not going back and accepting like I am fully Arya Stark, I am fully a Westerosi. She could like be halfway done training or the majority of the way done. She's basically no one, that kind of not zombie, but distant personality, and she defies her orders, leaves. And I don't want to say kills Dany, but I mean, that would be interesting too. Kills Victarion Greyjoy when she finds out his role. Maybe kills a dragon. I don't know. I'm just trying to think of who. Illyrio? I don't know. Young Griff. somebody that she could kill that would have major positive ramifications in Westeros for her allies, and she could die in the process. And it makes it really somber too, because no one over in Westeros is going to even know that she did that. That'd be a much more complex way to handle it, and it would be different. Just spitballing here, Don Boy. All right.
Yeah, I don't know how it's going to occur. We've pressed George through text messages and dude, tell us how this is going to go down.
Dude,
he's
so difficult.
He sends us back weird gifs and memes. Or dude, I don't know what the hell that even means, but whatever. I guess
he's so sassy too.
But I do know his wife's favorite character is Arya Stark. So I don't think, or I think it's been alluded that's her favorite character, and I think if he kills her, he said something about his wife would be devastated and pissed off at him. So George loves.
Simp.
Yeah, he's the biggest simp of them all. So I don't think Arya's dying, but I think her arc coming over to Westeros, it's going to be way more satisfying. It's going to be believable and hopefully more complex than her just standing up for herself in the House of Black and White and saying, I'm going to be Arya Stark, and if she became Arya, well, that wouldn't even work, because I was thinking maybe she'd be someone like a Batman character, but that doesn't make sense, because if she's Arya Stark, then she's assuming the identity, but then being a faceless man on the side. It's no, the whole thing about faceless man is you're nobody, you're nobody all the time. And the whole ending of Game of Thrones would have been way more satisfying if she wants to go on her own path and do her own thing. If she was a faceless man, instead she's Arya Stark on a Stark boat with faceless man powers. It's no, dude, how much better would it have been if she had somebody else's face on a nameless boat? You see it's Maisie Williams looking forward, and then the captain comes behind her and asks her some question. She turns around, she has somebody else's face, right? It's oh, yeah, she's a faceless man,
Or even if we see somebody on a boat and we don't even know who it is, a totally unfamiliar face, and then we see that she's either holding that Valar Morghulis coin, or maybe we get a shot then of Needle, right, the sword at her side or something like that. Just really subtle that tells us oh, okay, yeah, she's fully bought into this no one thing, which would be super cool too. And by the way, you could combine these things if you really want to appease George's wife, who I'm sure I would like to know during George's sex life how much of the sexual encounter focuses on his wife's nipples. I would love to know that, because
I think we can give a pretty good estimate or ballpark guess.
If it's not 90%, then I would actually be upset if I was his wife and I read these books and I realized how obsessed he was with nipples. Why is he messing with my nipples ever? That whatever. That aside, that very important point
nipples,
aside,
George.
yeah, exactly. Milk them. But you could have the thing I was talking about earlier a little bit, where she has this super important assassination to carry out, right? And it positively affects her allies. And then maybe we think that she dies, or it's kind of ambiguous, but then we get the shot at the end of her on the boat, and it's only shown to us through the fact that she has Needle or whatever. That is the kind of storytelling that I would like to see, and it definitely is up George's alley. Man, that sounds cool. That is how I want it to end. And if she's on a boat, please, God, don't put the Stark logo on the front.
The mast of it. It's we're I don't know what that boat was called. It could have been called Nymeria, based off of the sailor, the person that came over from Essos to Westeros, and also the name of her direwolf. Yeah, something you were saying earlier about characters running in to potentially Arya's arc here. I think the whole reason why they ran into this issue within Game of Thrones with Arya, Dan and Dave, is because they wrote out so many good characters that could have done things that they wanted to happen. For example, Walder Frey's death. If Arya doesn't want to kill or go down that path after she comes back from Braavos, who kills the Freys? I don't want Walder Frey dying. That's some other weird part of the fandom. Maybe it's Fandom that wants it. Ooh.
Oh, dude, Fandom, L takes Fandom.
Make your Walder Frey video, idiot. Who kills Walder Frey then?
Does he have? Listen, sincerely, does he even have to die? I understand that it would be a conclusion to the Red Wedding bad arc, but he doesn't even need to die. I don't know.
No, but the whole thing is bigger discussion than here. The last couple seasons of Game of Thrones was just fan service. The Hound coming back. Narratively, does the Hound need to come back? No. We don't need the Hound back. We want the Hound back. I wanted the Hound back. We didn't need the Hound back. They wanted Walder Frey dead. They wanted all these different things to occur. That's why they were there. That's why we got Brienne and Jaime, bumping uglies in Winterfell. That the whole reason why the fandoms craving for these scenes, for these little, instances so they can pleasure themselves with Funko Pops over it. Like, I just, that is the extent of the reasoning why I think Dan and Dave did a lot of this stuff, and it didn't feel earned.
Yeah, it's completely true. And to some of this stuff, I really like the Hound coming back. No, I don't even want the Hound to come back. Okay, at this point, screw him. He sucks. He's a bitch. But the epitome of it, or one of the epitomes of it, is like the A-team going beyond the wall. Not aside from the whole time sequence thing that it totally screwed, right? Like the communications of getting the notice to Danny traveling all the way up there and saving him in a night when normally this kind of trip would take weeks in the series. Just to get the message across Westeros takes a long time, let alone the dragon flying, which I accept could be a little bit faster, but still not like an hour. We didn't need to see these 5 super notable people who really are kind of unrelated. Their stories they don't really line up much. Like, we have the Simp Supreme, we have Beric Dondarrion, we have Gendry, we have Jon Snow, it's the Hound. I get
Thoros of Myr.
Yeah, Thoros, who has an amazing voice, by the way, one of the best voices in the show.
And hairlines.
And hairlines. I understand that these are all loved characters, all right, but we don't need to see them going beyond the wall for no reason, just to remind us, like to add weight that, hey guys, I know you really like the political intrigue, but this cold shit that no one cares about, remember, this is actually the most important thing. Dude, if they really wanted to give us what all the fans want, they would have given us the forbidden happy ending of Robert on his deathbed and Ned giving him a little herky-jerky.
Hey, thanks for watching this video. Be sure to subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and smash that like button.
Or not, we don't care.